All right. Welcome to this little broadcast with once again my good buddy Nick Clark. How you doing, Nick?
I'm all right, buddy. How are you?
I feel fantastic today. We were just talking about good days and bad days and all that stuff, and today is a good day. Wanted to come on today with Nick and talk about Saturday's class. Every note counts, but hang tight. Even if you don't want to join the class, you might pick up a few tips that are helpful for you. So just stick with this little live stream. We won't go more than maximum 10 minutes, maybe less. But Saturday's class is a good one. Every note counts. What does that mean to you, Nick? You did come up with this idea, so I want to give you that credit.
Yeah, it's to me it's a style of playing. Um, to me right now, there's kind of two kind of modes of thinking when it comes to improvising and soloing.
Right.
There's one that has more of a prowess, you know what I mean? Players like Little Walter, and even modern guys like Jason Ritchie, sometimes William Clark, where there's just these creative ideas. Billy Branch is another one. They're just kind of Paul Delay. It's just all
Sugar
kind of,
Blue.
yeah, totally. There's just these endless like stream of consciousness ideas, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think of it as being what's superfluous. I don't see it as being like unnecessary. I just see it as a way of thinking. William Clark, when he's really burning, I don't think he's playing overplaying, right? It's not talking about overplaying. Um, to me, every note counts is taking a few notes or an idea or a concept and just honing in on that one thing for a solo, right? Um, and really understanding the value of each note that you're playing, and that way, um, I don't know. I feel like it has a way of connecting to more people. That style of playing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it also lets you as an improviser kind of take the edge off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so players like Jimmy Reed and Lazy Lester and Slim Harpo, people like that, are prime examples. Um, I know he's a rack player, but a guy named Dave Moore from Iowa City, who's a big influence on me. He's a very tone specific and like few note melody type of player. Um, Junior Wells, especially, I mean, his entire career, but especially later on, he had these kind of little jabbing, little melodic runs, nothing too
Yeah.
long. It's just
And
the
how,
difference between maybe um, You Don't Have to Go by Jimmy Reed is every making every note count, and then Roller Coaster by Little Walter is that kind of more of a stream of consciousness type of playing. Neither one is better than the other. It's just two different modes of playing, and currently I'm more drawn to the every note counts type of thing.
well, it's funny. Before I ask you, we talk a couple details about the class. When I listen to your playing, like, and I think about what you do overall, collectively speaking, like in various contexts with a band, solo playing, you kind of float back and forth.
Hmm.
And context is everything. So when you're solo playing, yes, the ideas become a little more modified to the song, and every note counts in that style of playing something that has real value in each note and simplifying the ideas, like we're talking about. But then I hear you do more of the other approach sometimes, like in the band setting, like the other night when we were sitting in the cool chromatic stuff you were doing. That was really nice.
Oh, nice,
But I
nice.
think, but I think it all stems from the every note counts approach, which is when you know where to put it and how to trim the fat, and you start to play things that have more meaning in your playing. It's easier to add on at that point and go in the other direction. So
Totally. Yeah, it's like you know, ask any fast player, right? Buddy Green, Jason Ritchie, any of those cats. You ask them, how do you play fast? They're like, well, work on the line super slow, right? And so
yeah,
learning
yeah.
the value of a few notes will help you when you want to enter more of that stream of consciousness type of playing.
All right, let me ask you this: what are the songs that specifically you'll have some tablature up and be discussing and examining. What are the three songs that you've selected?
Four actually.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
that's right.
so there's three songs in the key of E, one song in the key of A. So and all cross harp. So all you need is an A harp and a D harp. The three songs in E are "You Got Me Crying" by Jimmy Reed, "Tell Me Pretty Baby" by Lazy Lester, and "Ain't Lost Nothing" by Delbert McClinton. And the one in A is "In Your Darkest Hour" by Charlie
I love
Musselwhite.
that. I love that tune, man. And are we, is it more about saying, let's examine the lines, maybe play a couple lines and see why, discuss why those lines fit well? So, in other words, like, folks will walk away with insight as to what is actually going on in the playing, not just solos, but like accompaniment and all this stuff. But then there's that strategy of how you bring it into your own playing. I also want to contribute some, I should mention, to this class. I don't mean to cut you off with that question, but like it sounds like what you're going for is illustrating it with the song examples,
Mhm,
helping folks get more information on that by receiving some of the tablature, and we can look at it together.
mhm.
So it's not about like the ear training process, it's about understanding an approach, a formula to playing.
Totally.
I think I would like to contribute. I'll just add to it. I mentioned this to Nick before we jumped on strategy. Like, I'll take a different avenue, and my shorter session will be focused on like maybe understanding how you can practice the art of doing this, of making every note count, and some quick ideas on ways to integrate into practice sessions. Just little simple things you can try to do, and a lot of that comes down to being aware, as I always say, of what you're currently doing, so
Mhm.
you can adjust it and understand where you want to head. So let me just say hi to the Rocket Girl. Thank you for being here. I got a member and all the other folks that are here, Charlie and Pete, everybody that's tuning in live. Thanks for being here. We're talking about a class this Saturday with Nick Clark and I called Every Note Counts, with all you need is an A and a D harmonica. It's all recorded, I should mention, in case you can't check it out live. You could purchase a ticket and then you could later on watch the recording and get the notes.
Yeah.
What else would you add about this class? Is there anything you would want to mention?
Well, the one in A is a different uh blues progression. Everything the other three are just
Oh,
straight 12 bars.
yeah,
Um but the so there's that. You'll get one song that isn't a 12 bar. You can see the same kind of mindset in, like, I think it's an 8 bar blues. Um and it just highlights, it's some of my favorite playing that Charlie does is on that song and whenever he's kind of in that vibe. And then the other songs, they're super similar. They're all kind of E shuffles, but the tempos are a little bit different and the sensibilities are very, you can hear the core principle is the same in all three, but like the route or the actual note selections are
yeah,
different. So you can hear them and go, they sound the same, but then you check out the tempos of the songs, they're different. The kind of actual feel of the songs, the intensity level is different. You see all these other different aspects along with the different note choices. And so I just think hearing kind of the same song three different ways by three
yeah.
different players kind of helps. So that's what you'll get out of the actual tabs and the songs will.
I love it, dude. I also feel like there's something to say for listening to another tip for folks that are just tuning in that may not be able to join the class is I like to step outside of the harmonica player role often to get fresh perspective, and that means listening to what the organ's doing, the piano, the guitar, etc., any other instrument but harmonica, to see how they're interacting specifically when they're not soloing,
Yeah.
but also when they're soloing, because I feel like, how can I say this politely, Nick? I feel like we are unfortunately playing an instrument that is perhaps stigmatized or has this reputation, and rightfully so to some extent, of being, a toy and something that's overplayed often and not being taken seriously. And this is a great way, this approach that we'll be discussing Saturday is a great way to revisit where you're at. Like if you have been just studying YouTube videos and listening to harmonica players, even though we will do some of that in class, you're going to get this other perspective by listening to other players, other
Yeah,
instruments.
and how the harmonica relates to the song, right?
Yeah,
Like how these particular players in these particular recordings are saying this is where the harmonica belongs in relation
totally.
to everything else that's going on.
Well, we don't want to give away everything in this live stream. The point of this stream today was to say hello and
Yeah.
talk about the fact that there is a class coming Saturday in case you missed any of my emails. Hopefully, if you're tuning into my live stream, you're also signed up for the Harmonica 123 newsletter. You can find that on the homepage. Just drop your email. And join us Saturday because I know it's going to be very, very insightful, as are all the classes that I've ever had where Nick is featured as a guest teacher.
Nice. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, lately, this is a good question to you. Um, Trying to find things that inspire me, and it's an obvious one to you and me because we talk about it quite often, but the Jim Liban record with Joe
Oh,
Patterson, Say What I Mean, which almost is like, you know, the title of the album is kind of appropriate to what we're
yeah.
talking about. But I listened to that, and Jim Liban is an incredible player, and on that record, he he plays. You know what I mean? It's not like he's like reserved, but he has trained himself by being reserved in the past. That even though he's fully creative on that record, it never feels out of place. Every note is exactly where it needs to be. And I don't know many records that almost every song, I would say, without, knowing every note specifically, I would say that there's not one note misplaced on that album, which is
Oh, I agree.
heavy. You know what I mean?
So here's the cool thing. I'll leave you with this thought, everybody. Whether you've listened to that album or not, revisit it if you've listened to it, and if you haven't heard it, pop it on and put your harmonicas away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, I'm serious. I mean, I want to make sure that everyone takes this serious and like really try to absorb just the musicality of the album, not just the harp, but everything. And then listen again with the harps away with the analytical mindset of like, why is it working well? What is Jim doing? It's a great prep for the class. And there's so many amazing things happening that Jim is doing in that recording, that album, that each song presents a new little angle that you can consider. Let me see if I missed any comments real quick before we go today. That's a good one to bring up, though.
Is there anything you've been listening to lately that like it doesn't have to, but just what's inspiring you lately? It doesn't even have to be harmonica.
Well, I always revisit the horn players. Illinois Jacquet is a player who I didn't go deep into, but recently I had a lesson where a guy wanted to cover the song. I think it's called Five Buckets of Jive or something like this. I can't remember the title. Something Buckets of Jive, Three Buckets of Jive, Five Buckets of Jive. So I had to prep. It was one of those type of lessons. You know how it is, Nick, when you're doing a private, and some you can just pop on and connect and do the lesson. Other times you realize you need to do a little poking around. Well, he pushed me into this song, which I didn't know. And I thought, my first listen to it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's first of all, there's so much going on. I'll link that song in the video description today, everybody. But boy, was it inspiring to the point where when I went to do the lesson, I was fired up. I was like, "Are you ready to get into this?"
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, "I'm like, because I'm ready for you. Are you ready for
Yeah.
me?" And so at any rate, so we got into it, and by the end of the lesson, I thought, "Here's another class. I've taught horn classes before.
Mhm.
Here's one that is awesome to examine this particular song for learning more about textures, how to create different texture within your tone. Phrasing is the obvious one. Like, look at all these cool phrases and placement. This sort of idea of not worrying or not trying to say too much. I guess that's the way I
Yeah.
would put it. Those players are so refined that even when they're being a little more, sorry, boisterous or however you put it in your description, they have refined their playing so that they can say that directly versus
Yeah.
like some players need less is more approach overall. And I think that that song is a prime example of just inspiration. There's many different horn parts going on. There's many different types of horns being played. There's other instruments you can listen to. So for
Yeah.
me, I think a lot of it lately is Illinois Jacquet. I think he's one of those players that we should. I know Kim Wilson told me once it was his biggest inspiration, one of his biggest
Oh,
inspirations outside.
really? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I asked him one time like, what was your who was your biggest inspiration outside of listening to the great harp players? And that was like the first word out of his mouth was Illinois, and I was like, really? I was like, I knew who that was and I had listened to it, but I didn't really critically analyze it. So knowing that, like, when I hear Kim play third position major, that's a great example of a lot of his influences coming out. Not just Illinois Jacquet, but like all these other players that might have those influences, etc. And so, like, if you go study Kim's playing, you'll see that like he has refined his approach, but it comes from listening to these examples. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up, but I really appreciate all of you joining live. Let me just see if I missed a quick comment here. There you go. S. Mad says, great thing to do is only allow yourself a few notes, place restrictions. I love that idea. Thanks for that. I'll bring that
Oh
in.
yeah, number one. That's how I, and not just with playing, like as a songwriter and as yeah, anything creative. I always have to tell myself I have to take things out. That's my
Yes,
favorite way of getting creative.
totally. Charlie, hey, welcome. Charlie's a member. Rocket Girl's here. Thanks to my members. If you want to learn more about that, just click the join button and you can read about the tiers on YouTube. Shane Sager's in the house. Shane, good to
What's
see you,
up,
brother.
Shane?
I just want to give a mention before we go today, a little plug to a class coming up in July, approximately a month out from now. I'll have Shane on a live stream here very soon and we'll be talking about it. So I'm not going to leak it yet, the topic. I want it to be a surprise. So
Yeah.
that's coming up. And thanks again to everybody. Y'all make it a great day. These are my air fryer burns. Air
Woo.
fryer 2, my arm 0.
Nice.
Yeah, dude, it's consistent on the left arm. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, there's ADD in
Man,
action.
I know it's we're wrapping up, but maybe one of these days we need to talk about that story that happened last
Oh
week.
yeah,
That is so
yeah,
wild. We should wrap up now, but like, whoa.
yeah. We'll leave you with this teaser that Nick and I had a very random but pretty cool musical experience and interaction with another fellow harmonica player that we had never met. And yeah, let's come back on soon and do that. Maybe after the class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As a wrap
Okay.
up, we'll pop up on this again.
Yeah, and thanks again for everybody that was here live in the live stream. If you're watching as a recording, make it a great day, and we'll see you hopefully Saturday. All the details will be in the video description, as well as the really cool song that I mentioned and any other important details. Y'all make it a great day.